Okay, closed passage. Again, some of you felt this was again a challenge. See, this is applicable to not just question types in English, even in quantitative and reasoning, right? You need to work with time. This is the time that I will allot for this type of question. If I'm not getting it within that time, don't break your head, move on, come back when you have time and attempt it. So let's read. Primary school enrollment in India has been a success story due to various programs and drives to increase enrollment even in remote areas. With enrollment reaching at least 96% since 2009 and girls up 56% of new students between 2007 and 2013, it is clear that many of access to schooling have been . Improvements to infrastructure have been a to achieve this, and India now has 1.4 million schools and 7.7 million teachers, so that 98% of habitations have a primary school, that is class 1 to 5, within 1 kilometer, and 92% have an upper primary school, that is class 6 to 8, within a 3 kilometer walking distance. So if you read the entire passage, very positive, right? It's giving me some statistics, it's telling me I have some positive words, right? Right in the beginning, topic sentence, success story, right? Enrollments reaching so-and-so statistics, improvements to infrastructure, right? And the result is we have so many teachers, right? And so many schools, right? So we have an understanding of what the passage is about. It's talking about school enrollments, number of schools and quality of teachers. Number of teachers that have increased, right? Now, let's go back and address each blank. Primary school enrollments in India has been a success story due to various programs and drives to increase enrollment even in remote areas. So, in the context, we're talking about something that has happened, right? The reason for the success story is this. Various programs and drives have been increased for enrollment even in remote areas, which means what is the context that we're talking about? We're talking about something that has happened on a large scale, right? Something that has happened to a great extent. Now, looking at my options, I have mostly, properly, totally, optionally, and largely. Now, I can safely eliminate B, C, and D. Like someone earlier said, I have to choose between mostly or largely, right? Now, it's important for us to understand the difference. In some contexts, both of them actually give the same meaning, if you ask me, right? But the slight variation in terms of difference in meaning, when I say mostly, I'm talking about usually. Right? This is one of the meaning that mostly gives. Usually. So I can say, we mostly spend our weekends at our friend's house. Which means we are usually, generally, this is the case, boss. This is what we do. This is how we spend our weekends. So that's one meaning. Right? The other meaning is, it can also mean, mainly or chiefly. Right? I'm explaining that, Raj. So it can also mean mainly or chiefly. So I can say this part of the country, is mostly unspoiled. This part is not affected yet. But in the context, we are talking about something that has affected or reached a larger context, right? It's saying the drives have increased enrollment even in remote areas, which means the target or the reach is to a larger context. So keeping that in mind, largely would be a most effective word. Like I said, largely brings in the meaning of to a great extent, on a large scale, right? That's the meaning that largely gives. To a great extent, right? On a larger scale. And here we are talking about the extent to which something has happened, which is it has even reached the remote areas. Yeah, are you following? So in the context, largely seems the most effective word. So even though you're confused between mostly and largely, look at the context, try and figure out the meaning, and then get the right word. So E is for the first blank, largely. So largely due to various programs and drives to increase enrollment even in remote areas, with enrollment reaching at least 96%. See, the other context also is talking about the extent to which something has happened. So largely seems the better fit. Reaching at least 96% since 2009, and girls dash up 56%. Coming up, reaching up, counting up, making up, touching up. What's the right collocation? Making up. Right? They make up so much, which means they amount to so much. Comprising. And girls making up 56% of new students make up, again, it's a phrasal verb, right? You need to understand the right phrasal verb in the context which gives the right meaning. So making up, so this is what they constitute. They make up so much. Making up 56% of new students between 2007 and 2013, it is clear that many dash of access to schooling have been dash. Many what? I can safely eliminate A, right? Why? Because many, which means we're talking about more than one issue. If it was S here, then I might consider A. Many opportunities of access, many problems of access, many efforts of access, many exertions of access. I can totally eliminate E, right? Not the right word, unrelated word in this context. D, efforts of access to schooling, opportunities of access to schooling, or problems of access to schooling have been. Now the next sentence is actually giving me a clue. It says improvements to infrastructure have been a dash to achieve this. What is that this? Which means they are talking about some issues that have happened. And if you look at 24th also, look at the options. Accustomed, addressed, met, forwarded, dissolved. Which means some issues have been taken care of. Right? Some issues have been taken care of. Accustomed, unrelated word, but addressed, met, dissolved all relate to certain things that have been addressed, or rather some issues that have been handled. So having said that, the most appropriate word to fit in 23 is problems. Many problems of access to schooling. Right? Some problems with respect to access to schooling have been addressed. How are they addressed? Improvements to infrastructure have been a dash to achieve this. Have been a what? Main, effort, priority, compulsion, awareness. The last one is easy, right? Because you have a clue, which is the indefinite article, which means I need a noun form. The reason why you can't say met for 24th is because they're still working on it, right? If you look at the subsequent sentence, it says improvements to infrastructure have been a dash to achieve this. Which means they're still working on it. There are still some challenges. It's left open. Getting accustomed to something means you're getting used to it. It's become more like a habit for you. That's the meaning of accustomed. So many problems of access to schooling have been addressed, right? One way in which it has been addressed is improvements to infrastructure have been a priority. This is almost like a collocation, yes, right? Have been a priority to achieve this. And India now has 1.4 million schools. And so this is the result of those improvements. But we cannot positively say that these have been met. The context doesn't say that because the subsequent context is also making reference to improvements being done in a particular area, which is the infrastructure. Have been a priority. So to achieve this, in India now has. So keeping in mind, so they're working step by step. The first priority is handling the infrastructure part. So probably there are other things that have to be taken care of subsequently. So we don't know that. So that's about it. The other one is, it can be, just you being tired, the physical exertion that you have, right? That's another meaning for exertion. So that's why I said exertion here is an unrelated word.